Faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for the daily.
In the middle of the 19th century, the country's future seemed bright, except one large problem. Southerners wanted slavery to be allowed in the new Western lands. Northerners were against allowing slavery there. Many people hoped that a peaceful solution could be found to the differences between the North and the South. But in the end, the differences led to war. These were sad years when the people of the United States faced each other on the battlefield. The democracy that was spreading in the first half of the 1800s was not shared by black Americans. Most blacks were slaves. Under the system of slavery, people were bought and sold as if they were objects, not human beings. By the early 1800s, slavery had been outlawed in most northern states. In the South, however, where vast cotton plantations were very important to the economy, the slave system was still strong. Most of the blacks brought to the United States came from West Africa. Europeans first traveled to Africa at the time of Columbus. By the early 1600s, some Europeans made business by bringing Africans to the New World and selling them as slaves. The voyage from Africa to the New World was terrible for the captured Africans. They were chained together and put into ships. Many died during the ocean crossing. About 10 million Africans were brought to the New World as slaves. When the slaves arrived in the United States, they were sold at public auctions. Very often families were divided up to be sold to different owners. Little children were sometimes taken from their mothers. Slaves belonged to their owners. They had no rights under the law. According to the laws, slaves could not meet together in public. They could not travel without permission. It was also illegal to teach a slave how to read or write. Slaves who disobeyed their owners could be beaten. In 1808, Congress outlawed the slave trade with Africa, but the system of slavery continued for nearly 60 years after this. On small farms, slaves and slave owners often worked together in the fields, but on large plantations most slaves seldom saw their owners. Most of the slaves were field slaves. They worked from early morning till late at night, and sometimes at night too.
Because their work is what was valuable, not their person.
Work began at sunrise. The company forced the first 11 to clear land, construct roads, and unload ships.
They were watched by a boss who was called an overseer. A small group of slaves, called house slaves, looked after the owner's house and family. They prepared meals, cleaned the house, and took care of their own children. And they also believed that freedom would come. And now the main questions. When was the end of the slavery? And does slavery exist today?
1856? 1865, 67?
I say 1865. Supposed to be within the Civil War, right?
It was somewhere in the 1860s.
Not until the Civil Rights Movement. I mean, it took another 100 years.
I mean, you see a lot less of it, but I mean, I think sometimes, like in some areas, you can still see it.
It still exists in its own way, in its own form.